All right, guys, welcome to episode 5 of the podcast. I'm here with Ellina, and Ellina is a corporate dropout, conscious life design coach, a DJ, an event producer, a vibe creator. You are a rock star.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Wow.
Like, honestly, I've complimented you on how much energy you put out into the world, and I am just blown away by your consistency and the fact that whenever you're doing something, you don't half-ass things. It's like you give it your all, and like all of these things, like you're crushing at them. And I wanted to bring you onto this podcast for a couple of reasons. So the first reason, it's like this is the Never Been Easier podcast, right? The whole thing is showing people that it's possible, that it's never been easier, and you are living this life right now. You know, you took that entrepreneurial leap after being 7.5 years in corporate.
Yeah.
Which, kudos to you. I think it's a lot easier for someone like me where like I didn't go into corporate and I just went straight into entrepreneurship, but to have that security for 7 years, to have a nice position at a nice company and then to let that go, like that takes a lot of courage, you know? So you're doing it, and I want to dive into that. And that's the main reason why I want to have you on this podcast and why I want to bring your story to people. Cool. So
thank you.
Yeah. So let's start at Progressive.
Okay.
Share a little bit about your experience working at Progressive, how long you were there for, and when really you started to kind of get that call and to like, man, like maybe this is not for me.
Yeah, it's a good question. Definitely a good place to start. So I graduated from college when I was 20, and a month later I started at Progressive, and really awesome company. I had a really great experience, honestly. The first year was really rough. It's an entry-level position in auto claims, big learning curve. And then I put in the time. I was like 5:30 a.m. waking up, going to the office, staying for 12 hours. Once I got the hang of it, the company was growing really fast. So in the first 2.5 years, I was getting promoted like every 6 months, which included a pay raise, which included new responsibilities. So it really kept me engaged. And at the same time, I had the programming that a lot of people do, that, you know, you go to college, you get a corporate job, and you climb up the ladder. So I was doing it. After 3 years, I got into a management position.
Beautiful.
So then I was enjoying that, working a little bit less, but in a different way, right? Like coaching people to do the job that I had been doing. And that was I was like just shy of 23 years old.
So you started coaching while you were in the job.
Yeah.
3 years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. So I was in a management role for a few years, and then probably around 25, I started to get that call that you mentioned. I kind of hit this plateau, and I wasn't going to leave Progressive to go to another insurance company because it wasn't the company that was the issue. I just didn't want to be doing insurance anymore, and the company was actually great. So I was like, okay, so what do I want to do? And it caused this it was like a weird low point, because it didn't look like the world came crashing down, but it was like little things that weren't aligning. So
yeah, what was that like?
It was really uncomfortable. So that's why I tell people who start this journey that when your discomfort becomes greater than the fear of the unknown, that's when you're going to move. Because that's where I was. So I was getting my master's, and while working full time, I'd passed all the classes. I got to the point where I was writing my dissertation, and my first proposal failed. So that hit me pretty hard. I wasn't really used to failing at things, but the idea was just really dry and uninspired because I was uninspired. So that was the first thing. Then my manager called me in. It was time for performance evaluations, and he's like, so how do you think you're doing? And I was like, well, I'm performing above average like usual, you know. And he's like, actually, like, you're kind of just like coming in and doing the job, like you're kind of just like you're kind of average. And I was like, whoa. I'm not used to that, you know. Like I was always like the youngest one, the hungry one, so I could tell I was losing that edge, and that really scared me. And then finally it manifested on a physical level, and I had a health issue that required surgery. So I'm good now, but all of those things combined were kind of like, all right, something's off here and something needs to change. But after like so many years, and that was my main skill set, I was like, what do I do? Right. Where do I go? Right. So that's when I got into meditation. And that happened because I switched gyms from the one closer to my office to the one closer to my home because I wanted to spend more time with my dog. Nice. I wanted to come home, hang out with him, and then go to the gym. So that's kind of how it all started. The gym I joined was this like 1980s world boxing gym, but they had one class. It was a yoga class. Nice. And that teacher was very spiritual. And she took that approach to her yoga practice, which was really cool for me because the yoga classes I had taken in the past were very like, physical, or at least that's how I interpreted it at the time. And in my meditations, I just started asking for guidance. Just started asking questions. Like, what do I do? Where do I go? And
you started meditating because of the yoga classes?
Yep. Yeah. And that's where I really understood that the practice of yoga is to warm up your body for meditation. So we would start with an intention. We would go through these like really beautiful flows. And then at the end, I felt like super open and aligned. And that was not my first introduction to spirituality. So this was around like 25 years old. I learned about the law of attraction when I was 17. So that's when I realized, like, okay, thoughts become things. Like, that's what they say. Yeah.
Did you start using it when you first heard about it? Okay, right on.
I started using it right away. In fact, I was in a sorority in college, and I remember sending an email to my whole sorority, and I was like, you guys need to read this book. So the thing is that, like, my interpretation of the law of attraction at that time was positive thoughts become a positive reality. So that was neglecting a whole element that we call shadow work, which I started doing then at 25. And that's when things really took an accelerated rate.
So at this point, you're in New Jersey.
Correct.
Right? Mm-hmm. Cool. So you start to do the shadow work. And I love this because I love this spiritual side of entrepreneurship.
Oh, yeah. It's super
life.
Spiritual.
And I feel that in these types of circles and a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't talk about that enough. So what happens once you start doing some of that shadow work and clearing space?
You start to notice patterns that have been holding you back. So it brings your awareness to that, and then you have the option to start interrupting those patterns, and that's when you see changes happening in your life. Right
on. So you start doing this, and you're still in New Jersey. How does you coming to Miami then manifest from that?
So a coworker of mine, she came up to me one day, and she was looking to relocate, and she's like, I'm going to apply to a position in Fort Lauderdale from Jersey. And I said, oh, I'm pretty sure Miami is hiring too. So we both applied to positions within the company in South Florida. And it all happened really fast. Within 2 weeks of us applying, we already found out we got the jobs and we moved. And the crazy thing is that had I not been, at that point it was already like 5-6 months of this like meditation and journaling and intention, like living intentionally. And if I hadn't been doing that, I probably would have said, okay, good luck to you. but my mind was open, and aware to opportunities. So the company actually paid for my whole move. And I stayed with the company for another year in Miami. And within that year, I was, networking and thinking about what I want to do.
I think I met you around that time.
Yes.
Right?
That was right when I opened my LLC, which is Office Flow.
Beautiful.
And that's when we met. Mm-hmm.
So let's backtrack a little bit, because Office Flow, and correct me if I'm wrong, this was your first official venture.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like I want to step out of progressive. Like, this is no longer an alignment, right? And I want to take the step towards entrepreneurship. And you started that while you were progressive. I think you were already bringing meditation to progressive at that time, right? You were doing like sessions and coaching people through meditation, right?
Yeah.
So when did it become clear that, okay, like I want to step out of progressive, and I know I'm passionate about meditation, I'm passionate about coaching, I'm passionate about what this can do for people, and I think that maybe I want to bring this into the world outside of this corporate environment?
Yeah, so remember when I told you my first master's proposal for the dissertation failed?
Yeah.
My second proposal was to study my own meditation program at Progressive and do a thesis on meditation in the workplace.
Right on.
And that one passed with flying colors. So I had this already kind of foundation that I was building. And for me, one of my blocks that was keeping me in this loop was I really wanted to please my parents. Especially my mom. Like, for some reason, I found like a journal from when I was 8 years old, and I just was writing how much I want to please my mom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like that was something in me since childhood. So the way I was able to exit corporate was by creating a story, a narrative that could put their minds at ease and give me the confidence to move forward. So I still was needing that approval, and I still wasn't super conscious of that, but that's what happened in hindsight. So I was like, okay, so I've successfully incorporated this meditation system into the workplace. I think I can bring this to other workplaces, and I can make that my business.
Okay. I want to dive a little bit into your patterns of wanting to please your mom, and how is that showing up? What's it showing up in you becoming like this manager or progressive and going up the corporate ladder? How was that
pretty much? Yeah. So, we all have programs that were installed by society, and society is parents, friends, TV shows, anything. So that was the programming that I was running on, and I was hearing about people doing like online stuff and having their own businesses, and she even would say like, have your own business, like you should do your own business, like in insurance. And I was like, ugh, no, that doesn't sound good. What I like about the insurance thing is the people, like, and who I'm working with, not the actual stuff. So yeah, that, like, it didn't even occur to me that I couldn't do something on my own, because I didn't know what I would do.
Yeah, those are such powerful patterns that I feel a lot of people fall into, and they don't want to let their parents down. Yeah. And I'm glad that you got out of it when you got out of it, because some people, they get to 40 and then they have some sort of midlife crisis where they realize they've been living the life that their parents approved of, right? Not staying true to what they wanted to live. Yeah,
absolutely. So the way that I was able to break through that is by kind of creating this story that kind of, they were still really nervous about it, but I was like, no guys, look, like I have an LLC, I have these legal documents, like all this stuff that was like, it's gonna be okay. So that was how I left. And the interesting thing is I left in December of 2019, so before the world turned upside down.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So interesting. So then you leave Progressive and you start you have this new venture on the way of Office Flow Consulting, which essentially you're bringing meditation and mindfulness to the workplace. Okay, and you do that for a while. How is transitioning from being a 9-to-5er and having that security of just secure income, like the paycheck's gonna come every 15 days, to now being on your own?
Yeah, it's really scary. And the thing is that the whole my whole transition was very pragmatic. Like, I had savings, I didn't just like go and free fall, like, like I was able to, over those years, I was able to save enough where I was like, okay, like, worst case scenario, I'm going to be fine for 6 months. So that gave me some peace of mind, because the first 3 months I really did not make any money. Like, very, very little.
Was that stressful?
It was stressful, but also with what was happening in the world, I kind of felt like the playing field like evened out, because everybody was like panicked. Yeah, right. So I wasn't like the one who was going through this big life change. Like, everybody was like, what's going to happen now? And I was just going through it in my own way. So it was kind of almost like, it was uncomfortable, but I almost felt like everybody was uncomfortable in that moment. It was weird. But yeah, one of the reasons why I left completely was because I knew that as long as I had that steady paycheck coming in, that I wasn't going to commit myself to my own thing.
Yeah.
And one of my friends told me, you can't be hungry if you're fed. And that really resonated with me. And I was like, you're right. So I was at a point where I had no choice. Like, sink or swim. You
Right.
either figure it out or not. So I realized that in that time, that working with businesses who were like trying to stay afloat, like, they're not going to pay somebody to come in and do workshops with them in that time. And pretty much what happened was, I was part of a wellness event as part of my marketing efforts. It was supposed to be in person. I was supposed to be doing one-on-one micro meditations with people. And then it got canceled because of COVID. And I was like, you know what? Let me still do this on my own virtually. So I put on my social media, like, hey, I'm doing private 15-minute one-on-one meditations. Here's my scheduler. Sign up. We'll do a call. And a lot of people signed up. And then I realized when I was on the phone with these people that it wasn't just like get on the call, meditate, hang up. I was building rapport with them in the beginning, talking to them a little bit, tailoring their meditation to what they told me about, and then doing a follow-up afterwards, let them unpack what their experience was like. And that was my pivot into private one-on-one coaching.
Before we started this podcast, we were talking a lot about trust and surrender, and surrendering to the flow of life and world events. And I feel in entrepreneurship, you can have a business plan, right? And even in life, and even when you're going through your 9-to-5, but things change, and you have to pivot. And I think a lot of people, when it's time to pivot, I think we all feel that fear, right? But you did it very gracefully in shifting from, okay, cool, like, I'm doing this in person, everything, like, nothing's happening, shifting to online. And then you start to see that people need a little bit more, right? And you kind of feel called to provide a little bit more. So that I feel like this is then the shift from one-on-one to then you diving deeper with people, right? So I feel at this point in your journey, you're starting to kind of catch some traction. And from the get-go, one of the things that I saw you do was you were trying a lot of things out, and you got to see what worked. You started Pocket Yoga Social Club, and I think like at one point you had even still, like, it's still going. I still see messages, like, and people like vibing in there, which was this community of people that you brought together, and you're trying all these things out. So tell us a little bit about then your next step in building this business, And I also want to talk a little bit about DJing, which is not something that we've talked about. You know, I wasn't kidding when I said she's a rock star, guys. Because I think in the midst of you pivoting and launching all these things, you're also developing this very artistic skill. It's a little bit less entrepreneurial, which is DJing. So talk a little bit about that.
DJing is very entrepreneurial as well, actually. So when I had that shift from 9 to 5 to just madness, I had met a DJ coach in my building, and I was like, you know what, like, let me learn a new skill. Like, as a kid, I would always be doing some kind of class, or, you know, like kids do. I was like, I haven't done something like that in my adult life in a while, so let me take some DJ lessons. And this was even before coaching. This was like when I was still trying to do office flow. And I took a few lessons and I loved it. So my DJ coach was like, okay, well, you need to practice, you need to get equipment. And like I told you, I had savings, and I chose to invest some of those savings into my own controller.
At this point, did you ever think that would evolve into what you're doing now? Okay.
Absolutely not. I was like, okay, so like what I did know was I know about neuroplasticity and how the brain works, and that when you do something new, it creates new neural pathways. And I was like, this will be good for my business. Like, I'm going to do something creative and have my brain work a little differently, and that'll spill over into my business. I don't know how, but I know that it will. So I bought the controller. I started to practice. I would put my mixes on SoundCloud, and as I decided, like, a few years back, to start using my social media intentionally to share my journey. So I continued doing that with DJing, and the people were like amused by it, you know, and then that took a lot of courage too, to be like, I'm learning how to DJ. Like, look, guys.
I remember Louise took this drone shot back when you were still living at the Icon of you DJing, and I'm like, wow, like you're good, dude, like really, really good. And I think that's when like things kind of started to unfold for you.
Yeah.
You know, what was the first DJ gig? Like, how did that come about?
So the first time I played, I guess like publicly. Because my first like gig was a party that I created. Louise and I, we created. Were you at the Urban Jungle party?
I was at one, but I think like this was after the
the
first one you played at.
2020, we did a party. It was at the Urban Jungle at Louise's studio. And it ended up being like 60 people.
Wow. Because it's like 540 square feet.
It was such a fun party, and that was my first time playing in front of people. And it's great because so many of my friends here are creatives. So they came, they got videos and pictures, and then I had content, you know. And the first like official gig was at Novikov. And I mean, it's a huge space. It fits like 500 people. But the way
it's
that
nice space.
it's
Novikov
super
is
nice. Yeah, it's super, super nice. And what happened was somebody who I had connected with at another like music festival reached out to me through Instagram and was like, hey, I have this place. They're looking for a DJ. Would you be interested? And I said, yeah, whatever. Just give them my information. At that point, multiple people have reached out and nothing came of it. So I was like, whatever, give them my information. But they followed up. I met with the owner, and he's like, yeah, let's try it out on a Wednesday. And I went, and that's it. That's my first gig. I mean, the first 15 minutes of that gig were a nightmare because I'd never plugged into a system that big, so I didn't know like how to set, like what to do with the settings or anything. Like, it was major learning curve. No. I was meditating through that whole experience. That's like meditation practice in action. But they ended up liking me, so I ended up staying there for a little while.
Beautiful. So we'll come back to DJing and what that's evolved into. Mm-hmm. I want to go back to coaching. Before we dive deeper into coaching, I know you're huge into energy. Mm-hmm. what energy work are you doing behind the scenes to support everything that's manifesting in the world for you?
So I would say definitely meditation. Like that's been my practice for so many years. And it's cool because one of the blocks that I had to leaving my corporate job, and even I did my coaching certification like years before I started coaching. One of my blocks was like, as a kid, I would always pick something up and then I would drop it. Like it would get challenging and I would drop it, and my parents let me. They didn't want to force me to do stuff. So I had this like, why would I start something else if I'm just going to drop it and fail? And I remember, because I had a life coach at that time during that transition of my life, and she was like, but that's what we do. We try things, and then sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay, and like just keep going. And I was like, it's so simple, right? Like when someone else says it to you. So meditation is one of the practices that have stuck in my life. It's like a non-negotiable. Like absolutely, that's the energy work that I do behind the scenes.
Beautiful. And I think that's one of the powerful things that coaches do for people is we have blind spots, and they're blind spots for a reason. We can't see them.
Yeah.
You know, and I think one of the most valuable aspects of hiring a coach and working with a coach, whether it's a life coach, whether it's a business coach, whether it's a fitness coach, is the fact that they're able to so clearly see stuff that you can't see. And sometimes all it takes is them saying something to you recognize a pattern that's been holding you back, and you then be able to do the work to release that and elevate your life. Cool. So you're working with a life coach at this point. What does your one-on-one sessions then evolve into?
My one-on-one sessions with that coach?
No. You're one, because at this point you transition office flow consulting to online kind of consulting, like helping people with meditation, and then that evolves into what's today's conscious life design.
Yeah. So my first 3 clients that signed up with me, it was just one hour phone call a week. It wasn't even Zoom. It was like literally on the phone, like super, super simple. And we would talk. And I started to notice the themes of what I was saying over and over. I started to notice what was really resonating with them, what was really creating changes for them. And that's when I put together my first framework. And my first framework was this, like, for like 48 hours, I like sat down and I just like created it. But all the tools that I've used personally, that I've used with my clients, and it just became this like 70-page document of charts and concepts and exercises. And so after the first like 4 or 5 clients, I had like more or less a framework that I was using with everyone more consistently.
Okay, and what lessons are coming up for you as you go through this journey of starting office flow consulting, starting the Pocket Yoga Social Club, shifting to one-on-one sessions, then shifting to creating a deeper framework, starting your DJ venture and that journey. What are you learning about what it means to be an entrepreneur and to make things happen outside of the corporate space?
Oh man, so much every single day, still to this day, and it's so fun. Like, it's so fun. I think the first thing that came to mind is, and this is something that my coach at the time helped me to understand, is like, it's not about you, it's about other people. So that already makes it a different energy. It's not like, how can I make money? How can I succeed? It's like, what can I do to help other people? So that's where the coaching work comes in. It's obviously a little bit different for DJing, even though there's more overlap than you would think. But that's like one of the biggest lessons, is always like, that's why I'm always evolving my program. Like, it's not something that I created, now it sits there. Like, with every new group of clients that are coming in, they're getting something a little bit different because I'm constantly evolving it. And so that's the first lesson, is like, it's not about you, and that creates a really nice flow.
Such a powerful lesson.
Yeah. Because I only succeed if they're thriving.
Yeah.
To a degree, right? Like,
For
when
sure.
they're showing up, if they're doing
For
the
sure,
work,
yeah.
and they're open.
Even energetic, from an energetic standpoint, when you're doing it to help them and not because you want to make money, things flow much smoother.
Yeah.
They feel that energy. The relationship has a totally different energy, and because you're and Dr. David Hawkins talks about this, because you're helping the world evolve and you're helping people live better, more fulfilling existence, the world kind of helps you out.
Yeah.
And I think because you've always been tuned in to this very genuine, life-giving vibration, it's why you were able to go from corporate to creating this extraordinary life that you're living right now, of like a rock star, where you're curating.
Whenever you say that, it's so funny to me. It's like, sometimes it doesn't feel like you're talking about me, but then I remind myself that, like,
100%. That's you. You're curating events. We haven't even talked about Solar Sunday, which is this event that you've been doing once a month for the past 6 months, I think. Where you're attracting like 50, 60, 70 people. I don't know what the numbers are, but you guys are attracting a big crowd. But I think it all comes back down to, and I'm scratching the surface with like what she's doing. I think it all comes down because you've been vibrating at a very genuine, positive, not self-serving, but life-giving frequency.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a big another big lesson is tapping into your authenticity, and actually a lot of Brene Brown's work helped me with that, like the power of vulnerability and shame versus guilt, which also overlaps with Dr. David Hawkins. So a lot of that work, a lot of those teachings have influenced that as well. And some of the feedback I get the most from either potential clients or clients I end up working with is they're like, I never felt like you were selling anything to me. Because what I do is I share, and that's actually something I learned from you and from This Is Marketing by Seth Godin. It's like, just tell your story and show up. Of course, have an offering, have a price point that you feel good about, but the right people will gravitate. So yeah, authenticity is everything.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I think that's why people resonate with your brand, because it's very you, right? So it hasn't been 2 years since you left the corporate world, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It feels like it's been 10.
Yeah, can you paint a picture of what your life looks like now, if you're comfortable, where you're waking up every morning, which I know is something that's like big for you now, big change in your life that you've been able to create as a result of going into this entrepreneurial route. Yeah, I would love for you to paint a picture
of like what my days look like.
Just your life, like how you're like how many times you're DJing per week, residencies, the fact that like you just moved into this beautiful apartment that you bought, you know, and it's summer Sundays. I'll let you.
So it's cool because when I was at Progressive, part of my manifestation practice was I would take a day off here and there, and I would live my life that day how I would like to live it as an entrepreneur. So, you know, as most people know, maybe some people don't, like, manifestation is the act of embodying right now what it is that you want.
Right.
And there's a whole element of self-worth to that will actually create sustainable changes. But I remember I would take a day off, and instead of like going to the beach or like laying around, I would actually wake up how I would like to wake up at, like, you know, I'm not like a 5:30 a.m. person. I like to wake up at like 7:30, 8. And have my morning to myself, which it took me actually a long time to feel comfortable taking my time in the morning, because from the corporate training of like wake up, go, go, go. And then sitting down and doing work that I really love, like genuinely. And so what my life looks like now. It really it depends on the week and on the month. So I have a very active now DJ schedule and also a very active coaching schedule. And someone asked me the other day, like, how do you know where to put more energy? And without even thinking about it, I just said intuitively, because it depends on the opportunities that are coming my way. Mm-hmm. So if I have more clients, then I'll scale back a little bit on what I'm accepting with music. If I'm getting really good opportunities with music, then I'll scale back on clients. I won't take any new clients on and work with my people. And so I play Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
I know, like 2 weeks ago, you're like, man, like I've DJ'd like 7 days, like 7 times in the past 5 days.
Yeah. I went through a few weeks where I was playing like 6 to 7 times in 4 or 5 days. So that, I would say I play on average like 5 times a week, 4 or 5 times a week.
I gotta ask, how do you take care of your energy?
Yeah. Well,
it's a lot of output.
Yeah. So definitely have to take care of my body in terms of exercise and nutrition. I went through a few months where I completely neglected that, like did the very bare minimum, and my body was hurting from like all the DJing. And then I was like, maybe I'm overdoing it, but then I was like, maybe I should try working out more consistently. And that's been tremendously helpful. Like that gives me so much energy. Making sure I get enough sleep, so it's like, it's not going to look exactly the same every day, but like I'm checking in with myself every day. Yeah. So if I need a nap, like making time for that, even if it's a power nap, making sure I'm eating, so a big part of my coaching is self-reparenting. So it's becoming the parent for your own inner child. Mm-hmm. So that's a big part of my practice, is making sure that the time that I do have for myself, which I always, now make sure I have, I'm taking care of myself first and foremost, so that I can go out and show up fully for the other stuff.
Yeah, I never thought about it, but now that you bring it up, DJing, it must be very physically taxing. I mean, you're standing up for hours at a time.
Yeah.
You're dancing. Yeah. There's so much energy that you're co-creating with everybody. So yeah, that must be your self-care has to be such a important part of you being able to output so much energy and making this happen. So we're talking a little bit about what your life looks like now, so I think people now get a good idea of what your DJing schedule looks like. You've talked a little bit about how you help people. Dive a little bit into that, what that part of your business looks like, and also for those that might be interested in coaching, what you help people with.
Yeah. So with the coaching, I have created this, I guess you can call it a program, but I don't know. It's an experience, honestly. Yeah. And it continues to grow and evolve, and a lot of that was with your help. So it's a combination of things. I meet with my clients once every 2 weeks. Over Zoom, or if they're local, they have the option to come see me in person. And during those times, we really unpack a lot of things. During those sessions, I come up with assignments that are specifically for them, depending on what their goals are, what they're working on. And so we meet every other week. And in the interim, they get access to the online course where they can tap into different topics that I've pre-recorded. And also in the interim, they now meet with other people on my team.
Beautiful.
So they get a financial consultation, they get a private 90-minute breathwork session, that this incredible, well, they're all incredible, so I'm not going to even start with going into each of these individuals, but they get a consultation with a graphic designer to work on their personal brand image. And now I'm actually, this is like my first time actually sharing, but I have a human design expert as well.
I love that.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan of human design. So I was calling in, I put it into the universe. I was like, I would like a human design expert to meet with my clients so we can get a little bit more insight on their shadows and how they operate, so we can be even more intentional with assignments and the work that they're doing. And he appeared. And so now we have a new member of the team. So it's very holistic. It's, that it's life coaching, right? It's like very all encompassing. And all of these things are really interrelated. So I'm kind of the thread throughout the whole experience, but throughout these 3 months, they get exposure to a lot of different things.
Beautiful. And the end goal is conscious life design, right?
Yeah.
It's them becoming conscious of their patterns, working through that, letting go of that which doesn't serve them.
Yeah.
Getting all these skills. I love that you've brought in a financial advisor, that you're empowering people with breathwork tools, right? That you're getting them familiar with, like, how does my energy work, so then they can go and consciously create amazing lives. And I see some of the testimonials that come out from your program, and I'm sure you were crushing it at Progressive, but I'm so happy that you took this leap of faith, because now I think the impact that you're making now on people's lives and on the world, and the joy that you're bringing through your DJing is so beautiful. That like you're doing that, and you're crushing, you're changing people's lives, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about entrepreneurship, and why I'm so passionate about helping people like take that leap of faith and build that business, because I generally believe that if you are that entrepreneur and you have that call in your heart, you have something beautiful to bring to the world. And I always say it's never been easier. Doesn't mean that it's gonna be easy. It takes a lot of work, and I know that that behind all of this, like, you're putting in the time, you're putting in the hours. And first of all, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
So proud of you. I have a question for you. What would you say to Ellina at Progressive 2 years ago, when you're considering kind of leaving that position, and there's a lot of uncertainty and maybe fear surrounding that decision?
Wow, that question makes me emotional. I would say the first thing that comes to mind is you have everything you need right now to succeed.
Amazing. Yeah, I think so often we don't feel ready and not realize that ready's a decision, right? Like, ready, and a friend like made me aware of this. Like, ready is not a time, a point. It's not like accumulation of knowledge or experience. It's like, I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah, because I think also we think like, I need to get this like certification or this education or this person's approval or this type of business plan, right? Like, just start moving. And the thing about my journey is that, like, it was a leap. Like, when it came time to leave, like, it was a leap. But I did a lot of work to set myself up to that point, and that's part of my coaching too, is that it's not like you just wake up one day and you drop everything and you have this new life. Like, we're in a physical world, we need to do certain things to like do our part to show up in a way that we feel good. So it's a process, right?
Certainly. Yeah, all these beautiful trees, they have roots that go deep.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you don't see them growing these roots, and without these roots, they couldn't be this beautiful, strong trees.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is a great place to wrap this episode up. Is there anything that you would like to say to someone that might be thinking about taking that leap, or that maybe they're not really happy where they're at in life?
Yeah. I would say just start doing something small in the direction of your passions and what you think your gifts might be. Just start taking tiny little steps. Just don't stay still. Stillness is really important in cultivating your energy and gaining clarity, but then move.
Yeah, that's how you'll start to create momentum, and you'll see more opportunities will pop up. Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Ellina.
My pleasure.
This is awesome.
Thank you.
Very cool.